Hi and welcome to Watch the Time and my unboxing and first impressions of a new watch from Spinnaker. Now, disclaimer out of the way first, I got this from Spinnaker, they've sent it to me. I'm under no obligation to say anything about it. The only obligation I'm under was to not do the review until the 20th of August, which is what I've done. But they kindly sent me this for review and I've had it now for about a month and I've been wearing it every day for a month. As you can see, we've got some new packaging for a life beneath, beyond and beside the sea, and this is actually the third version of the watch in question, which is the Dumas. The fact that it's version 3 I think speaks volumes of this company. Now, I've reviewed two of their other watches. I don't sort of take every watch that I'm offered or every new one that comes out. I only look at watches that have an interest for me. Now, the Dumas version 1 and 2 had no interest for me, but that was more about the design of the strap or the bracelet and the colourways. There was nothing there that really took my fancy. However, this absolutely took my fancy. The fact that it's version 3 means they're progressing all the time and they're improving. They're not resting on their laurels. They're not just bringing out new models. They are refreshing their existing lineup, and I think a lot of that is down to influencers and YouTubers and comments that they get on videos like this, where they see what people really want. And some of the issues from this particular watch in the past, certainly the Mark II version, was a fairly devicery bracelet, which was that like mesh bracelet thing, and it just looked dreadful to me, and no interest whatsoever, especially on a dive watch. Didn't understand it. So, quick wristwatch check. I've finally got my Black Bay 58 back from the menders. It's been at Rolex for a little while, but that's another story for another day. And this is the first time I'm wearing this, purely because I put this back in the box. So we'll get the watch out. So, new packaging, quite happy with it. Just a brown cardboard box, nothing special. The box inside, nice and sturdy. Good branding. I think this is what they've done a lot better with this watch as well, is their branding is a lot better, and this sort of font kind of now appears on the watch rather than that kind of italic look, and I really rather like it. So I'm going to quickly pull this off, and there you are. Now, I don't think, it does come across there. Just catch that. Look at that dial in the light. That is the true colour of this dial. It's like a deep orange, but it's got this kind of metallic effect, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So there, it looks like a real dark orange, but in reality, it's actually a little bit more metallic looking than that. So one of the beauties about watches in this price bracket, and I know it gets boring, but it's got a good old NH35 on board. And that might be a downside for some people, but they're easy to work on, they're easy to regulate, they're reliable, they're robust, they're reasonably accurate. You can get them more accurate. This one is particularly good. It's been running within a couple of seconds a day, and this is the beauty of them. So that's dead stopped at the moment, and there you go, that's off and running. Now, if I was reasonably active and I wasn't just going to go and sit down or go to bed, I could put that on my wrist now, and that would just carry on running and keep going. And that's down to the magic lever system that's in the Seiko NH35. Which, so for me, having a Seiko NH35 is not a problem for a watch in this kind of 300-ish price bracket. So clearly, the design of this watch has been discussed before, and it's kind of based on the Omega Ploprof. And it's a big chunky 300-meter dive watch. A lot of the criticisms that have been levied at this watch are generally around its size, but I can't do that because it's a big heavy watch. So if you don't want a big heavy watch, then you don't buy it. It's as simple as that. But this is a big heavy watch, and it's probably one of the heaviest watches I've had. It's sort of on monster territory, but on the bracelet it's nice and balanced, or if you put it on a strap, which I have done, just a cheap canvas strap, it works really nicely, and no issues with it whatsoever. And it does lose a lot of its weight, because that bracelet, which is the one of the new things from version 3, is a real chunky, really nicely made bracelet. So if we just start with the head of the watch, as you can see the branding has changed, and instead of like italics, the Spinnaker is now just in bold, and I really like that. That's really nice. It's in a nice black, it's nicely printed on the dial, and that's perfect. I really like that. Then you've got automatic written in this kind of baby blue to match the little markers outside of the hour markers, and the baby blue on the big hand, the big minute hand. And then below that you've got 1,000 feet, 300 meters in a much lighter black font, and I think that really makes for a nice clean dial. Now obviously on the inside of the markers you've got the 24-hour markings like you would have on a field watch, which I could have done without, but I think they're done so delicately that it actually doesn't really affect the watch, and you kind of get used to it, you don't notice it so much. The markers themselves are on like a raised, like a chapter ring type thing around the edge, and then the markers are raised applied markers as well, and I think they really look nice. I think they make a great feature on this watch. The date is nicely integrated. It's contrasting in with a black background and a sort of a black surround, with then that orange extended square that comes out from that chapter ring. I think that's done really well. I love the handset. Now on some of the colourways I'm not keen on the handset, but on this one I think the baby blue on the big crab hand kind of really tones it down a little bit, and you know, from a legibility point of view this is a fantastic watch, but it's not as in your face as some of the other models. Second hand I love, just a simple lollipop with a nice big lume pip on there. That's yeah, really happy with that. The bezel itself is, from what I understand, it's like a mineral glass bezel, which I can see why they've done it. Probably sapphire and ceramic would take this out of the price bracket that they wanted to, but they still wanted to obviously have it loomed, so it looks like a mineral crystal to me. It's got a nice effect and a nice look to it, and the lume is fantastic. Personally, I prefer aluminium bezels. I just prefer the way they sort of age and look. You know, that's just my preference. But no issues with this so far. I've seen one video where someone managed to crack the bezel, because it technically is glass. Obviously I've not had any problems, but you know, I think you'd have to take that with a pinch of salt as to, you know, how you view that. Is it a deal breaker? I personally don't think so, but I'm fairly easy on my watches. So then going on to the case, you've got this really angular sort of is that a pentagon or an octagon? I'm not really sure, but you know, this really angular case. Just as we go past there, you've got a loomed crown, which is really nice, and that's the double N from the Spinnaker, rather than the Sail logo, which is a bit different. You see it that way up, it's the double N, and you say that's loomed, which is a new thing for me, and it's got like a I think they used to call that, if it's like a jewel, a cabochon or something, but just a little bit of glass there over it, really nice. Again, you've got this vertical brushing on the side, all very sort of tool-tastic, but with a nice beveled edge there, and again these sort of semi-integrated, I suppose you'd call that, bracelet, the way it's shrouded over there. Again, really nice, very angular vertical brushing, and then you've got this sort of brushing around the edges here as well, but a real sort of angular chunky case, very similar to the Ploprof. It reminds me a little bit of the Seiko Monsters that I've had, in that kind of big angular chunky manly shape as well. This isn't a watch for the majority of YouTube watch reviewers, because their wrists are too tiny. I think it works fine for me. I did have one little issue where I tend to cross my arms over my head, and I actually hit myself in the head with this, like donk, like that. You know, it is you could literally beat someone to death with this. It is a big, heavy watch. It's you know, about 200 grams with all the links in. Back of the watch, we have got a display case back. I'm in two minds about that. It doesn't need to be a display case back on a 300 meter dive watch, in my opinion, but I understand that if this is your first automatic, it's nice to be able to see what's going on, and they do at least put their own little spin on it on the Spinnaker, on the logo, the Spinnaker logo on the with the rotor there, and there's a little bit of information around the back of the watch there as well, which is really nice. The crown is nicely guarded and is easy to manipulate. It's lovely and smooth, no issues with that whatsoever. Really nice, and obviously you've got the date change and the time change. It hacks, it hand winds. You know what the NH35 is all about. Moving down to the bracelet, we've got this really chunky 3-link kind of bracelet, really nice. Just push pins to change it, so it's nice and easy to size. I never have a problem with push pins. It's nice and easy, and it's just, I just sometimes think simple's best, to be honest. You've got 3 micro adjust on the clasp. It's an all milled clasp, again really nice. Positive click, click, and then to open it, you've got Spinnaker across there. To open it, click, double pusher to release. There is a little extension there, wetsuit extension or diver's extension. I could have done without that, to be honest. To be fair, I'm not really bothered, but it's fine. I've got it sized, no problem at all. By taking a big chunk of links out, there they are. Yeah, so I took all these links out. So 4 complete links out. So I'm just going to put it on wrist and show you what it looks like. There it is on my just over 7-inch wrist. And again, you know, this is a big, chunky, heavy watch. You know you're wearing it, and so don't buy it thinking, you know, when you compare it to my Black Bay 58 that I took off, you know, there is no comparison. That is a much slimmer watch. This is a real chunky watch. Yeah, I've just checked. It's 44mm across, about 15mm thick, and about 48. The lug to lug is actually quite short, so that's not a problem. You can see there, sits quite nicely on the centre of the wrist. It doesn't overhang. I always like to be able to see some of the bracelet from above, here and here. If you can't see that, watches look, you know, it means it's probably a bit too big for your wrist. I mean, it doesn't bother me if you've got a small wrist, but this is really for, you know, this is a chunky watch. It's a heavy watch. It's really tool-tastic in my opinion, but it's also a great fun watch. It makes a great summer watch. You know, I've worn this in all situations. I've worn it at work, on the motorbike. I've had it completely submerged. I've worn it in the shower, and I know you shouldn't do that, but I have, because it's a 300-meter water-resistant watch. So what the hell? I've worn it in the shower. I've worn it on out on jobs, things like cleaning the bike, working on the car. I've just worn this basically non-stop for the last month. And it's one of those watches. It's always legible, day or night. The lume is fantastic. Actually, while we're out here in the sunshine, let's just look at the outdoor shots. That dial is absolutely spectacular. Look at it, beautiful. Okay, so I haven't charged this up with a light or a torch or anything. I've just walked from the house to the garage. It's sunny outside. Just took, you know, a few seconds, and that's it, all lit up. Yeah, I think the lume's not going to be an issue with this one, because the lume plots and the hand's so big. I think it's going to be great. As I say, it keeps really good time. This has been within 2 seconds a day on average. It gets a few comments because it's a big chunky watch, and with that orange dial, I mean, there are other colours going to be available, and I think if you look at the Spinnaker, the website, obviously that should all be all that information should be on there now. Talking of which, if you do go to, you know, have a look at the site and decide to buy one of these, I have managed to get this time. I've never done it before, but I have got a code in the description where you can get a bit of a discount. You should always be able to get about 20% off these watches, and there's a code in the description for you, and you can use that for any of their watches, I presume. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, to be honest. Let's talk about negatives. Now, obviously, I can't talk about the size as a negative, but it's a thick, chunky watch. So whilst that will exclude a lot of people from buying this watch, I think if you've got a watch, if you've got a wrist which is less than 7 inches, say, or you know, just over 7 inches, I would say this is probably a bit too big for you. If you want it, that's fine. I would sort of suggest that you go for something a bit smaller and lighter. The bezel action on this one is really nice. It's really stiff on my one for some reason, but it's also actually quite nice. There we go. It's not as grippy as it could be. I mean, that probably is really my only actual bona fide complaint about this watch, is that the bezel is really stiff. I've used it a bit more, and it has definitely freed up a little bit, and it's certainly not an issue, and it wouldn't be something I'd be complaining about or sending it back. Whether that's just my one or whether that is going to be indicative of the range, I'm not sure, but the bezel is certainly not the easiest to move. Now, in a diving scenario, obviously that's what you want, but if you're cooking eggs or something, it's probably could do with being a little bit freer. The looks of it are obviously going to be divisive again, along with the weight. Not everyone's going to like that big minute hand. It does look like one of those crabs with the big pincer thing, big claw. It's certainly grown on me, and I really like it, and as I say, from a visibility point of view, night or day, it is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so I can't really give you too many complaints about it. We got there's no drilled lugs, but I've had it on so I've worn this on a canvas strap, a rubber strap, and got it back on I prefer it on the bracelet, to be honest. And although there's not drilled lugs, it is fairly straightforward. If you've got just a little screwdriver, you can get in and get them off, no problem at all. And getting the bracelet back on was no problem at all as well. Although it looks quite tight in there, it's actually not that tight at all. So I'm really struggling to come up with any kind of negative comments about this watch. Everything lines up nicely, and it's just a great watch. So anyway, thanks for watching. Watch the time. I've really enjoyed this watch, and it's stayed in my collection. It's my summer watch. I used to have the orange baby monster Seiko, and I kind of regretted selling that because I sold it to get a monster, and then I sold the monster because it was a bit too heavy, and it was a bit too top heavy, and I've kind of missed having just a nice summery, bright coloured, not too expensive, but fully water resistant. 300 meters of water resistant is fantastic because it gives you that confidence that it will take a bit of a knock, and you can go in seawater and the rivers and swim in and the shower and all kind of things like that. You just don't have to worry about it. And I haven't got that in a watch in my collection. So this and the dial colour is just spectacular. So yeah, this is definitely staying in my collection for a while. And my collection is now only including this watch, 4 watches, so it takes a lot to get into my collection. Whether it will stay there for the foreseeable future, who knows? If something else comes along, it may get replaced, but at the moment, definitely staying in the collection. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.